Have you ever wondered how Steve Jobs was able to capture the attention of millions without having any real technical background, and how no other tech leader has managed to live up to his storytelling and presentation ability? Well, the answer isn't natural born talent or even confidence. In fact, here's a clip from his first ever TV interview.
You're sure? Okay.
Great.
We'll let him vote too.
That'd be good. You need to tell me where the restroom is, too, because I'm deathly ill, actually, and ready to throw up at any moment.
But through a series of deliberate efforts and techniques, he was able to transform himself in one of the world's greatest presenters. So in this video, we're going to break down Steve Jobs' CCC framework to help you understand not only how to apply them in presentations, but become a better storyteller in everyday conversations. We're going to be giving you these techniques after going through hours of Steve Jobs' presentations, as well as the public speaking lessons I have learned in the past 10 years in my own life. The best part is these techniques are very practical and things that you can start applying immediately. And once you learn them, you'll be able to tell better stories, present with more confidence, and maybe inspire a few people. Let's get started. By the way, if you're new here, my name is Radeep from Frantically Speaking. We release videos on communications all the time. So if you like such content, hit subscribe. And in case you want to take your communications journey to the next level, you can book a free consultation call with us, link down below, and we can see if we are a good fit. So the CCC framework in this case stands for conflict, curiosity, and climax. And we're going to break them down to understand how practically Steve Jobs applied them and how we can use them in our lives as well. Let's start with the first C, which is conflict. And I want to explain this through something called as the villain technique. It means when we're trying to present something or we're telling a story, the only way a story becomes interesting is if we introduce a villain into it. Something that goes against what we are trying to achieve. And Steve Jobs did this amazingly well. Watch this clip of him introducing the iPad.
If there's going to be a third category of device, it's going to have to be better at these kinds of tasks than a laptop or a smartphone. Otherwise, it has no reason for being. Now, some people have thought that that's a netbook. The problem is, netbooks aren't better at anything. They're slow, they have low quality displays, and they run clunky old PC software. So they're not better than a laptop at anything, they're just cheaper. They're just cheap laptops. And we don't think that they're a third category device. But we think we've got something that is. And we'd like to show it to you today for the first time. And we call it the iPad.
If you noticed, he didn't just introduce the iPad right then and there. He first drew context by talking about the phone and the laptop, and then he spoke about the current villain that's already there, the netbook. He also did this very famously when he introduced the iPhone.
Why do we need a revolutionary user interface? I mean, here's 4 smartphones, right? Motorola Q, the BlackBerry, Palm Treo, Nokia E62, the usual suspects. And what's wrong with their user interfaces? Well, the problem with them is really sort of in the bottom 40 there. It's this stuff right here. They all have these keyboards that are there whether you need them or not to be there. And they all have these control buttons that are fixed in plastic and are the same for every application. Well, every application wants a slightly different user interface, a slightly optimized set of buttons just for it. And what happens if you think of a great idea 6 months from now? You can't run around and add a button to these things, they're already shipped. So what do? It doesn't work because the buttons and the controls can't change. So how are we going to take this to a mobile device? Well, what we're going to do is get rid of all these buttons and just make a giant screen. A giant screen.
This concept of introducing a villain is also known as the background contrast effect. It means that a solution looks more effective when an inferior option is presented along with it. It's also a lot of times why people tend to have a very expensive offer along with their core offering, so that the core offering seems a little less expensive. So let's say if you're giving a presentation at work and you're talking about a new idea you want to bring into the project that you're working on, instead of just talking about the idea or the solution, first draw context by talking about the conflict, the problems at hand right now, the villains that are coming in the way. And only then present your solution. It'll help make it come across as just a little sweeter. The next C is curiosity. And Steve Jobs was a master at building suspense for maximum impact. And that's one of the main reasons why Apple keynote presentations were so powerful. Even though it could have been very boring technical stuff with technical details for hardcore fans, it had a much more global appeal because everyone was at the edge of their seats waiting for what will be revealed next or what will be said next. And that comes down to understanding how to hold anticipation, which we all can learn from him. And the best example to give over here is when he released the iPhone.
Today, we're introducing 3 revolutionary products of this class. The first one is a widescreen iPod with touch controls. The second is a revolutionary mobile phone. And the third is a breakthrough internet communications device. So, 3 things: a widescreen iPod with touch controls, a revolutionary mobile phone, and a breakthrough internet communications device. An iPod, a phone, and an internet communicator. An iPod, a phone. Are you getting it? These are not 3 separate devices. This is one device. And we are calling it iPhone.
In 2007, when he was giving the presentation to reveal the iPhone, he didn't just say, oh, we have a nice new revolutionary phone for you. Instead, he revealed 3 products: an iPod, a phone, and an internet communicator. And he kept repeating this phrase until he revealed, and the audience also got inside of the joke, that these are not 3 different products. This helped to create a wow moment in the entire presentation. Now, if you remove the anticipation building and you just reveal the iPhone, yes, still amazing because it's a great product, it doesn't have the same impact from a presentation perspective. And the main lesson for us over here is when we are presenting something, or even if we are with our friends and narrating a story, try to save the best for last and keep on teasing the solution or the climax until we reach the end moment. When we do this, people aren't even sure of why they are hooked on in the first place. And one very powerful way to do this is to apply this principle.
And we are calling it iPhone. Today, Apple is going to reinvent the phone. And here it is.
Now, did you notice what he did in that clip? After making that statement, he paused. That silence was critical to make an impact in that moment. Because if you would have just said, we're calling it the iPhone, it's one of the best products out there and it's better than blah, 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 the entire impact, the build up, the introduction of the villain, all of that goes almost to waste because of how the climax was revealed. So when we are speaking, pausing either before or after revealing some critical information, it'll help the audience to comprehend that information, provide us with an appropriate response, and it'll help them see that what we've just said or what we're about to say is very crucial. And finally, the third C is your climax, which is much more to do with the delivery of whatever you're saying. Now, the climax depends a lot on the story you're telling itself. For example, if you're talking about something as revolutionary as the iPhone, automatically the climax becomes more interesting. However, there are some techniques that we can apply to make the climax sound a lot more enticing, regardless of what the actual reveal is. Watch how Steve Jobs reveals the benefits of the iPad.
Again, using this thing is remarkable. It's so much more intimate than a laptop, and it's so much more capable than a smartphone with this gorgeous large display.
He used something known as the rule of 3. More intimate than a laptop, more capable than a smartphone, and more beautiful than both. The rule of 3 is a powerful communication tool, and it helps us to sound a lot more compelling, persuasive, and credible. All throughout history, speakers have used the rule of 3 to make their quotes a lot more memorable. I came, I saw, I conquered. Blood, sweat, and tears. Government of the people, by the people, for the people. So when you're presenting something, try to incorporate the rule of 3. You can use it when you're talking about features, benefits, or even problems. So let's say if you work at a bank, don't just say, hey, I work at a bank and we help people with their financial lives. Instead, you can say, hey, I work at XYZ Bank. We help make our clients' financial lives better by helping them live with less stress, more freedom, and abundant wealth. It just sounds so much more impactful. One more thing we can utilize to make our climax a lot more impactful is to simplify our message as much as possible. And people think when I say simplify, it means to use simpler words. It necessarily doesn't. In fact, it's harder to simplify something than to talk about it in a complex, jargony fashion. But when you work on simplifying a climax, that end moment, something that the audience will remember, it makes the entire presentation all the more memorable. Steve Jobs did this amazingly well when he revealed the iPod and when he said this memorable phrase.
Because we started this all with 1,000 songs in your pocket.
This phrase is remembered even today, even though the iPod is not used much. So we need to remember when we're trying to sell across an idea, the end reveal or the end line needs to be simplified to the point where people can easily remember it. And when we combine these frameworks of introducing a villain, building anticipation through pausing, and finally revealing by using elements like the rule of three and simplicity, we're not only able to make our presentations a lot more compelling, but we're able to make our words a lot more impactful. But what's important to note is communications is only as good as your articulation. Whatever thoughts you have, if you cannot put them out clearly through your mouth, all the story techniques in the world go to waste. So if you want to learn more about articulation, we've created an entire video and used the example of Jordan Peterson to show you how you can articulate your thoughts more effectively. You can check out that whole video right here. I'll see you in a second.